Hello, friends. German cars have always been in high demand, and, of course, not without reason, as their reliability and functionality are truly admirable. We are familiar with many German automotive brands. However, one of the most popular for decades is the BMW Group. Its models have long become a symbol of luxury and sporty style. Today, the Bavarian company represents a giant production line with numerous car plants not only in Germany but also in other countries around the world, from the USA to Egypt. About BMW, they say, in life, you can change many things, but BMW, only for BMW. In general, it's finally time to tell the story of the creation and development of this automotive brand, which counts more than 120 years and is undoubtedly interesting to everyone. It all started in December 1896 in the city of Eisenach, where a certain Heinrich Erhard, a talented engineer and nephew of the famous inventor and successful locomotive manufacturer Johann Heinrich Erhard, opened his first machine-building plant. Importantly, the man ventured into the production of automobiles and components not without reason. Initially, the factory exclusively produced vehicles designed for the needs of the German army, including ambulances, mobile soldier kitchens, carriages, and even bicycles. It is worth noting that at that time, Heinrich was already 50 years old, and almost nothing was known about his childhood and youth, except that he was born in 1840 in Thuringia. At the age of 24, he started working at the Hartmann machine building plant in Chemnitz, the largest Saxon company at that time. It was there that he developed a passion for machinery, and it stayed with him for the rest of his life. In essence, it was just another factory producing everything necessary for the army, and at that time, there was no talk of mass production of civilian cars, no ideas, no dedicated design bureau, not even a desire to produce something similar. And it likely would have ended there if not for an article in the local newspaper that Heinrich came across during breakfast. It vividly described the incredible achievements and successes of his German colleagues, namely Daimler and Benz. In particular, it talked about their incredibly popular, at that time, motor carriages. For those who haven't seen the history of Mercedes-Benz on our channel, I'll remind you that it was Carl Benz who invented the world's first automobile with an internal combustion engine. Overall, Benz was a pioneer in the field of automobile manufacturing. Heinrich realized that he shouldn't stay on the sidelines and let all the glory go to Daimler and Benz. In that instant, the idea of creating something that millions of people would talk about appeared in his mind. Of course, Erhard understood that he was no less capable than his colleagues, and he could create something of his own and unique. At that moment, he caught himself thinking that he should try to design something light, not military, and importantly, different from the competitors. To save time and money, Erhard decided to take a different path. He simply bought a license from the French for a Parisian car called Ducerville. And that's how, my friends, what is now called BMW came into being. At that time, this monster was simply called the Motorized Carriage Wardmark. It was not their own development. Just a couple of months later, in September 1898, the Wartburg Company made its way to the automobile exhibition in Dusseldorf and took its place alongside Daimler, Benz, Opel, and Durkop. Within a year, Wartburg even won 2 major car races. Throughout its life, Wartburg received 22 medals, one of which was awarded for elegant design. In general, Wartburg did happen, but it ended after a few years. In 1903, Erhard's factory found itself on the brink of bankruptcy. The reason for this was the company's accumulating large debts year after year, which were not covered in any way. At that moment, the question arose sharply about closing the enterprise or changing its direction. However, help came unexpectedly from one of Erhard's shareholders. It turned out to be the stock speculator Yakov Shapira, who did not want to part with his beloved motorized carriage and, of course, with the income derived from its production. Shapira invested a certain amount in the company and became a savior for the enterprise. After that, he also took on some responsibilities and powers from Heinrich Ehrhardt. A year later, under his careful guidance, the factory began to design Dixie cars, built under the license of the British Austin 7. However, the first batch of cars ended up with the steering wheel on the right. It was the first and last case when the passenger sat on the left side in continental Europe. From 1904, 15,822 Dixie cars were produced, and it's worth mentioning that they were quite popular, with sales going splendidly. But competition forced them to innovate and finally create something of their own. Their own development became the Dixie 315 PS, which was quite expensive and reached a considerable speed of 75 kilometers per hour for those times. However, this car was also built based on the English Dixie. Heinrich still dreamed of his own car, but production under the guidance of shareholders was aimed solely at profit. To increase that profit, Carl Friedrich Rapp, a Swiss engineer, aviation enthusiast, and sky lover, was invited to the company. Unfortunately, success eluded him. Under BMW, Carl opened his small production of aviation engines and airplanes, having everything: desire, enthusiasm, and a head on his shoulders. However, his first biplane, presented at the exhibition, simply did not take off. But the engineer did not give up. On the contrary, he worked more diligently on the next biplane with an engine of his own assembly. However, at this stage of development, the company did not achieve success. The planned exhibition from 1914, on which they focused, simply did not take place due to the war. It seemed like the perfect time to create engines and airplanes for the Army's needs, but luck was not on Rapp's side even here. His engines were so noisy that local residents signed a petition to prevent planes with these motors from flying over their homes. On March 7, 1916, his company was registered under the name Bavarian Aircraft Works, BFW, but the company needed new investments. And then a new character appeared on the scene, the Viennese banker Camillo Castiglione, who bought Rapp's stake in the company, thereby raising BFW's capitalization to almost 1.5 million marks. In general, I'm already confused about who was responsible for what. It is only known that under the BMW flag, there were diverse productions controlled by different people. But somehow or other, they were united by one parent company. After buying a share of the Bavarian Aircraft Works by the Viennese banker, Franz Joseph Popp, an Austro-Hungarian Marine lieutenant with a higher engineering education actively monitoring technical achievements, was invited to the company. It was he who proposed his plan for the company's overall development. The first thing Popp did was hire Max Fritz, a former engineer from Daimler. On July 21, 1917, an historic entry was made in the Munich registration chamber. Bavarian Aircraft Works Rapp was now called Bavarian Motor Works Bayerische Motorenwerke. That day marked the emergence of the well-known BMW. It is also worth mentioning that even after the name change, the main production of Bavarian Motor Works remained unchanged. These were the same aviation engines. At the end of the war, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, according to which the victorious powers prohibited the production of aviation engines in Germany. But even this did not stop BMW. On June 9, 1919, an aircraft equipped with a BMW engine reached an altitude of 9,760 meters. However, the record was not officially recorded, again due to the Treaty of Versailles. Simultaneously, banker Castiglione acquired another plant for the company's aviation engine production, leading to the decision to divide production into two directions: aircraft engine development and automobile manufacturing. Engineers focused on creating a novelty, and by 1923, Germans shocked the Paris Motor Show by introducing their first BMW motorcycle, the R32. The company took 5 years to decide on the directions it would work and develop in. Motorcycles, automobiles, and aviation engines were the relevant areas. This decision shaped their future. Notably, BMW continued producing the British Dixie alongside and even won the International Olympic race in 1929. In 1930, the company's leaders made an incredible decision to go back 30 years and release a car called Wartburg. The shadow of the motorized carriage of the past century took on real outlines again, embodied in the DA3 Wartburg model. Motor and Sport magazine wrote that only a very skilled driver deserved this car. It was not for the faint-hearted. The car indeed gained attention, capable of reaching speeds up to 100 kilometers per hour. The next milestone was the BMW 303 model, which exploded onto the public at the Berlin Motor Show. Under its hood was the smallest six-cylinder engine ever made, with a volume of 1,173 cubic centimeters. Manufacturers guaranteed a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour. The 303 model for almost 70 years determined the appearance of BMW cars. The next model that captured the hearts of car enthusiasts was the 326 convertible, completing the era of the first 3 series. Until 1941, the company sold 16,000 units of the 326, marking a real success. However, BMW also considered cars for the so-called elite. The company's first limousine appeared in 1939, providing strong competition for Opel Admiral and Ford the 508. However, just as the company began to recover slightly, a new war marked the end of the development of cars for private individuals. All efforts were urgently directed towards assembling aviation engines and military vehicles. In the early 40s, 3,000 cars were produced and named BMW 325 Lichter Einheitsbkw. But Germany's defeat in the war almost equally meant the destruction of BMW. The factories in Norbrechtshofen were turned into ruins by the USSR allies, and the plants in Eisenach came under the control of the Soviet Army. Equipment that survived was taken to Russia. However, there was no way to retreat, and at the next shareholders' meeting, those who survived World War II and did not leave Germany decided to gradually restore production. At that moment, colossal resources and money were required. A large number of investors were attracted, and the company's leadership changed depending on who contributed more money to the enterprise's treasury. However, even these problems did not prevent BMW from developing and releasing its first post-war innovation. Unlike the USSR, which had ready production lines and money. The first official post-war BMW product was the 250 cubic centimeters motorcycle R24, released and presented at the Geneva Motor Show in 1948. It was followed by R51, R67, and the 6-cylinder R68 with a top speed of 160 kilometers per hour. In the early 1950s, about 30,000 people already owned BMW motorcycles. But time passed, and the company still couldn't return to its main business, car production. The first attempt in the post-war period was the BMW 501, which was enthusiastically received by the public. However, there was one drawback that almost led the company to bankruptcy. The production of the 501 turned out to be very expensive. In the 1950s, BMW released the 507 and 503, which also did not meet expectations and plunged the company into a debt pit. Not even the advertising campaign helped. Overall, only a miracle could save the situation. And it happened. Every year, competitors exploded the auto shows with crazy and luxurious novelties, while the Bavarians could only watch. The last attempt to produce something was the BMW Isetta 250, or as the manufacturers called it, the Motocoupe. These were the dying convulsions of a dying company, but surprisingly, the Motocoupe that everyone laughed at became a lifeline. And who could have imagined that such a marvel of engineering, once on the roads of Germany, would revolutionize the automotive industry? BMW Isetta 250 and subsequently BMW Isetta 300 with an engine of only 298 cubic centimeters, captured the hearts of hundreds of thousands of car enthusiasts. It was an incredible success, and within a few years, 137,000 of these miracle cars were sold. Interestingly, they were particularly loved in England, where authorities allowed driving such a vehicle with only a motorcycle license. Well, how else? There was only one wheel at the back. But even after such success, BMW was hit again. The year 1959 entered Germany's history with its financial crisis, which brought even large companies to the brink of collapse. The barely surviving BMW simply could not survive it. Once again, the question of closing the enterprise arose. After lengthy discussions and consultations, unexpectedly for everyone, the BMW board of directors made its decision. The company could only be saved by merging with another company. Frankly, there didn't seem to be many options, and Mercedes was the first on the list. But, fortunately for fans of these two brands, the merger did not take place. Firstly, Mercedes simply laughed at the Bavarians, and secondly, some of the company's shareholders did everything to ensure that the company's shares ended up in the hands of Herbert Quandt. Thus, the company was saved from the financial crisis. Immediately after that, a new board of directors was appointed, which set the main task for the company for the coming years. We produce mid-range cars and aviation engines. So, already in the winter of the same year, the BMW 1500 car was released from the assembly line, a model that could easily accelerate to 150 kilometers per hour, reaching its 100 in just 16.8 seconds. 24,000 such cars were sold within a year. Next came the brother BMW 2500, which sold 95,000 copies and even won the 24-hour race in Spa. The 1970s marked an important decision in the company's history. From now on, all cars produced by Bavarians had a serial number depending on the class. The BMW 520, produced in 1972, became the first post-war 5. Under the hood was a 4-cylinder engine, and the weight of the 520 handled 1,200 kilograms, which was incredibly much compared to all previous models. Moreover, the car was already equipped with seat belts. So, within a year, 45,000 people were fastening their seat belts every morning before experiencing 13 swift seconds to 100. But the Bavarians didn't stop there, of course. In 1978, at the Paris Motor Show, they presented the first car that could compete even with Lamborghini, the M1 or E26 project, designed by Giorgio Giugiaro. It could accelerate to 100 in just 6 seconds. It felt like being in a Ferrari, but it was already a German Ferrari. While working on such cars, the company did not forget about ordinary customers who were also waiting for new BMW releases. In 1975, BMW released another 3, the BMW 323i. It became a leader in its class and its time. The car's maximum speed was 192 kilometers per hour, and it could reach 100 in just 9 seconds. However, there was one significant drawback: the car consumed 14 liters of gasoline per 100 kilometers. But this nuance did not deter BMW enthusiasts. The car lineup continued to expand year by year with models like BMW 316, 320, and 323. From that time on, BMW became synonymous with a cult car. In the late 70s, the model range was complemented by its first 7s, namely the 728 model. The 1.5-ton car reached a speed of 200 kilometers per hour and cost slightly less than the recently released Mercedes S-Class. In 1983, BMW participated for the first time in the F1 Championship for turbocharged engines, honestly surpassing Renault. Brazilian Nelson Piquet drove the BMW car, and at the peak of the M12/13 engine's power, it produced 1,280 horses at 11,000 revolutions per minute. BMW became the first ever world champions in F1 among turbocharged cars in the history of engine competitions. What was most insulting for the French was that no one was surprised by this victory. By the mid-80s, BMW firmly secured its place in the sun, and no one could say that BMW was a mediocre company barely staying afloat. Within just 15 years, the company transformed from a debt-ridden enterprise into a leader in car manufacturing. Then there was another race, in the literal sense of the word, but this time between BMW and Mercedes. As a result of the battle between the two giants, one of the most famous models emerged, the famous M3 in the E30 body, accelerating to 100 kilometers in just 6 seconds. Those who sat behind the wheel of a BMW M could choose the type of suspension depending on road conditions. You could choose sports mode, and the car would grip the track, plus normal and comfort modes. The lineup of the company's luxurious cars began to develop in 1989 with the release of the BMW 850i model. The BMW 8 Series was supposed to become the best flagship for the Bavarians and the main competitor for Aston Martin Virage, Ferrari Mondial, Mercedes 500 SL, and Porsche 928. The BMW 850i was technically ahead of its time, but, as often happens, the magnificent sports coupe quickly became history after a bright start, sharing the fate of many similar cars. And already after the release of the first 8, a car appeared that was honestly called the car of the century, the legendary BMW M5 E34. It was charged with 380 horsepower and accelerated to 106.5 seconds, and the maximum speed it could develop remained a secret. The 90s became a time of updates for the company. The 7s were updated, especially the 740i model and the E38 body. The 5s were not left behind either, and at that time, the E39 burst into the automotive world with 7 engine options for every taste. For the unhurried and for those who wanted to go faster, and for the most unstoppable, the BMW 540 was presented. At the end of 1999, the company finally took over the market across the ocean, opening the BMW plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina. But soon the Bavarian management realized that they couldn't surprise this market with sedans alone. The company began actively working on its first SUV, and that's how the BMW X5 appeared. This car showed itself from the best side. The main features were the load-bearing body and fully independent suspension, the platform of which was inherited from the BMW 5 Series E39. X5 became the most popular car for 15 years and only recently gave way to other models of the company. In 2002, the BMW Group achieved a record-breaking sales figure of 1,057,000 cars. In 2003, the most luxurious model of the BMW 7 Series was introduced, the BMW 760i and 760li. Additionally, a new 5 Series sedan was unveiled. The BMW Z4 model was recognized as the best convertible of the year. To consolidate success overseas, in 2006, the luxurious BMW X6 was introduced, combining the best technical qualities of an SUV with coupe design. Interestingly, the Japanese from Nissan were pioneers in this class, releasing the Infiniti FX35 crossover in 2003 specifically for the American market. Although the Infiniti FX became more popular than the BMW X6, the Germans earned their market share. In 2008, BMW produced over 1 million cars per year, with more than 100,000 people working in their production facilities. The company's revenue exceeded 50 billion euros, and the net profit was 330 million euros in 2008, the first year BMW cleared all its debts. In 2009, the global premiere of the new sedan in the legendary 5 Series BMW took place. The flagship model was the magnificent BMW 550i, embodying the best qualities of the brand: refined and stylish design, unparalleled driver comfort, and efficiency. A significant event for the company occurred in September 2011 with the official launch of an ultramodern carbon fiber production plant in collaboration with SGL Group. The plant is located in Moses Lake, Washington, USA. The new facility produces carbon fiber reinforced ultralight plastic for BMW i cars. In the same year, BMW presented the innovative electric car BMW Active E at the International Geneva Motor Show. In December 2014, the phenomenal BMW i8 was awarded Car of the Year by the influential automotive publication Top Gear, facing tough competition among global premium car manufacturers. The company's logo is also worth noting. Many believe the BMW symbol indicates aviation and represents an aircraft propeller since the company initially manufactured airplane engines. However, this is not accurate. Throughout the company's history, the BMW logo changed, but it remained recognizable as only the colors of the abbreviation and emblem changed. The first BMW emblem appeared in 1917 when the company's name was registered. It incorporated the shape of the old Rapp Company logo, founded by Karl Rapp, with the addition of the letters BMW. The color of the lines changed from white to gold, and the emblem featured 4 sectors in white and blue colors, symbolizing the coat of arms of Bavaria with white and blue diamonds. This perspective is supported by representatives of the company. Currently, a century after its humble beginnings, BMW has evolved into the largest global conglomerate with 5 plants in Germany and subsidiaries in Malaysia, India, Egypt, Vietnam, Thailand, and Russia. The cars produced by BMW throughout its history continue to be an authentic symbol of high-class, comfortable transportation. Interestingly, BMW is one of the few automotive companies that do not use robots in their factories. The assembly on the conveyor is done entirely by hand, and a computerized diagnostic of the car's main parameters is carried out at the exit. The BMW empire found itself on the brink of collapse 5 times throughout its history, yet each time it rose again and achieved success. Perhaps, in conclusion, a few words should be said about Heinrich Erhardt, where it all began. Throughout his life, this talented self-taught engineer registered 128 patents in the German Empire. In 1891, he patented the process of producing seamless pipes, known as the Erhardt pressing and drawing method. He also influenced the development of the recoilless gun. In his honor, the Erhardt Mountain Gun Model 1901 was developed. By the start of World War I, his company, including BMW factories, became the largest arms manufacturer in Germany. By January 1914, the workforce exceeded 8,000 people. By 1915, it reached 14,000, and by the end of the war, a whopping 48,000 workers. By the end of 1917, the Erhardt Company was producing over 2.5 million cartridges and shells daily, more than 500 pistols and rifles, as well as up to 50 different artillery and anti-aircraft guns. After World War I, with the bankruptcy of the firm, all these activities ceased, but BMW, as mentioned earlier, took its own path separate from Heinrich Erhardt. However, when he was 80 years old, Erhardt stepped down from the company's leadership due to disagreements with other shareholders. Until 1928, Heinrich Erhardt taught in his hometown, and in 1928, at the age of 88, the heart of the talented engineer stopped. In general, friends, I think that's all you need to know about the history of the BMW company. If I forgot to mention something, be sure to write about it in the comments. And of course, share your personal opinion about the cars of this brand. As it is known, people are divided into 2 categories, those who adore them and those who hate them. It will be interesting to know how many of each. For today, perhaps, that's all. Evaluate the video, and see you soon.